To start a new play, you go to the File node in the browser. Press the Browser key on the console. Use the down arrow to go to the Files node. Use the right arrow to open that node and the down arrow to select New. Press Modify. Now you'll get an option to clear or save the play you have in memory. Use the up arrow to select Clear in this case and Modify to confirm. Next, you will have a dialog asking you to verify the most important settings that you should be aware of before you start working with the show. Now remember, these settings can be changed at any point. Use the down arrow to select the first setting. Under General Settings, the first setting controls if times will be set to the current step, A, or the next step, B, of the sequence in the main playback. So this decides if times are set to the last fade or the next fade. The default setting is the next fade. Use the down arrow to select the next box. Modify toggles boxes on and off. Usually, remote controls are set to be enabled, so you can use a radio or phone remote. Use the down arrow to go to the next spot. The next three settings are for default times in the sequence of the main playback. There are two kinds of default times. The default go time is a time that will be used when no other time is specified. This time is never stored. So if you change the default go time at a later point, your sequence will play back differently when default go times are used. However, the default out time and the default in time, I'm using the down arrow and the up arrow to go between them here. These times are stored. To enter a time, enter the number and press Modify. If you're using moving devices, there are two very important settings. What is recorded and when will they move? What is recorded is controlled by Record Attribute mode. It's default set to active, which means that any device with an intensity over 0 will be recorded with all its parameters. This is a very simple rule. What you see is what you get, and you can play back your steps out of order, getting the same result on stage. To get the alternatives in these boxes, you press Modify. The next alternative is Changed, which means that only parameters that have changed since the last fade will be recorded. We recommend Active. I'll use the down arrow to select the next box, Sequence Attribute Playback Default. This sounds complicated, but it's simple. When do you want your lights to move when you play back a sequence? The default option is Automark, which means that the console will detect if the devices are over 0 or not when a new step is prepared to fade in. If the lights are over 0, they will move when you press go. If they have no intensity, they will preset before they're faded in. This works really well, and it's easy to change at any later point for every device in every fade. The alternatives here that are not used that much is Go and B, which means they will always prepare in blind, Go on Go, which means they will always go live. We recommend Automark. The last setting, I'm using the down arrow to move to it. The last setting allows you to start with a 1-to-1 dimmer patch or a clear desk. I press Modify to open the drop-down. I use the arrows to select my choice. And at last, I use my down arrow to go to the Let's Begin box, and I hit Modify to confirm this. Remember, once you've okayed these settings, they can be changed at any point. Simply, if you want to get back and change them, press Setup, the Setup key on the console, or choose Play Settings in the browser. So I'll hit Browser, go to General Settings and Play Settings, and I can hit Modify there. I have the same box, and I can change these settings later. Now, the only setting you don't find here is the patch, because if you want to change the patch, you go to the patching node of the browser.